I'll give you $300,000 if you can serve me in
I'll
Chinese.
give you $300,000
That's what the
if you can
millionaire
serve me in
said,
Chinese.
right there in the middle of an upscale restaurant, loud enough for everyone to hear. $300,000. Cash. Just for a waitress to prove she could speak Mandarin. And the way he said it, the smirk on his face, the laughter from his business associates, he wasn't offering a gift, he was setting a trap, because in his mind, there was absolutely no way that this black woman standing in front of him, wearing a waitress uniform and tired eyes, could possibly speak 5 languages. No way she could be educated. No way she could be brilliant. No way she could be anything more than what he decided she was in the half-second he bothered to look at her. He bet $300,000 that she would fail, that she would embarrass herself, that he could humiliate her in front of dozens of witnesses and walk away feeling like the smartest man in the room. He had no idea who Jasmine Carter really was. The entire restaurant frozen, every conversation stopped, every fork suspended in midair. All eyes locked on one table where Jasmine is standing tall, speaking flawless Mandarin that flows like poetry. Not simple phrases. We're talking complex, sophisticated Chinese that discusses business culture, philosophy, and respect with the precision of a diplomat. The millionaire's face has drained of all color. Sweat is literally dripping down his temples. His $3,000 suit suddenly looks like it's strangling him. Behind Jasmine stands the restaurant owner, Chen Li, with his arms crossed and the smallest, most satisfied smile you've ever seen. The millionaire's 19-year-old son has his face buried in his hands, completely mortified by his father. And then, just when you think it can't get more insane, Jasmine switches languages mid-sentence, from Mandarin to flawless Italian, then to French, then to Spanish. 5 languages pouring out of her mouth like she was born speaking all of them at once. Every single person in that restaurant has their phone out, recording, witnessing, watching a man's entire world crumble because he made one catastrophic assumption. But how did we get here? What pushed this humble waitress to accept a bet that could cost her everything? And what was she willing to risk for $300,000? Let me take you back 6 hours. Back to where Jasmine's day started. Because this story, it's not just about languages. It's about every person who's ever been invisible. Every person who's been underestimated. Every person who's had to fight twice as hard just to be seen as half as good. 6 a.m. A studio apartment in Philadelphia that's smaller than most people's walk-in closets. The alarm is screaming, but that's not what makes Jasmine's heart sink when she opens her eyes. It's the envelope on her nightstand. Pink paper with bold black letters, eviction notice, final warning. 28 years old, working 60-hour weeks, and still one bad week away from being homeless. She drags herself to the bathroom, and here's where you see who Jasmine really is. Even exhausted, even staring down eviction, even with every reason to give up, she's still practicing. A Mandarin podcast plays through her phone while she brushes her teeth. Her mouth forms the tones perfectly. The way her tongue hits the roof of her mouth for certain sounds. The rising and falling pitch that makes Mandarin so musical. Most people hear Chinese and think it's impossible. Jasmine hears home, because Jasmine Carter grew up in foster care. Bounced from house to house like she was nothing. Like she didn't matter. In one house, the other kids would mock her, call her ugly, tell her she was too dark, too poor, too stupid to ever be anything. And you know what Jasmine did? She'd escape to the library. The one place where nobody could tell her she didn't belong. That's where she found them. French novels, Spanish poetry, Mandarin textbooks that most people walked right past. While other kids were outside playing, young Jasmine was in the foreign language section, teaching herself to speak the languages of the world. Not because she had to. Because language became her superpower, her way of proving that she was more than what people saw when they looked at her skin color. Her community college linguistics professor once pulled her aside. "Miss Carter, your Mandarin accent is perfect. Absolutely perfect. Where did you learn?" And Jasmine, sitting there as the only black face in a classroom of 20 students, simply said, "Books. And the internet. And I just listen." She didn't tell him about the nights crying herself to sleep in foster homes. Didn't tell him about using language tapes to drown out the sound of arguments. didn't tell him that every language she learned was another piece of armor. Another way to prove she deserved to exist in spaces that didn't want her. Back in her apartment, Jasmine's getting ready for another double shift. But she stops at a photo on her dresser. It's her surrounded by children at a community center. Kids with brown faces and big dreams. Kids who come from nothing. Kids who remind her of herself. And in that moment, you understand everything. Every double shift where her feet scream in pain. Every rude customer who snaps their fingers at her like she's a servant. Every manager who looks right through her like she's invisible. Every no offense that actually means all offense. She endures it all. For them. For the cultural center she's saving to open. Where every child, regardless of their zip code or their skin color, can learn that they're capable of extraordinary things. 4 p.m. Le Sommet Restaurant. It means the summit in French, and everything about this place drips with wealth. Crystal chandeliers that cost more than a car. Wine bottles that cost more than most people's monthly rent. White tablecloths so crisp they could cut you. Jasmine walks in through the back entrance, and immediately the kitchen staff's faces brighten. She greets the line cooks in Spanish, switching effortlessly between English and their native tongue, asking about their families, their day, actually caring about their answers. These men work 12-hour shifts in a 120-degree kitchen, and she's the only server who treats them like human beings. Her coworker Amanda is already stressed, venting about difficult customers. And in the corner, Chen Li, the restaurant owner, is watching something that makes him smile. Jasmine has stopped to help the teenage busboy with his Italian homework. Most people would rush past, clock in, start making money. Not Jasmine. She stops, she teaches, she sees people. Chen Li approaches her, and there's warmth in his eyes. Jasmine, you're early. Again. She manages a tired smile. Rent's not gonna pay itself, Mr. Chen. But Chen Li's expression shifts to something deeper. Something knowing. When you open your cultural center, you'll need to learn to rest too. Jasmine looks genuinely shocked that he remembers. You remember that? I remember everyone's dreams, he tells her quietly. Especially the ones who work hard enough to deserve them. See, Chen Li isn't just any boss. He's a Chinese immigrant who came to America with $800 and a dream. He built this restaurant empire from absolute nothing. He worked as a dishwasher, a line cook, a server, clawing his way up through a system that told him he'd never be more than the help. He sees himself in Jasmine, in her work ethic, in her quiet dignity, in the way she refuses to be broken. For 3 years, Jasmine's worked at this restaurant. Never late, never called in sick even when she should have. Never complained, even when customers treated her like garbage. She tutors Chen Li's daughter in English after her shifts. He lets her practice Mandarin with his family at their dinner table. There's real respect between them. The kind of respect that doesn't need words. But then Gerald walks in. Gerald, the manager. White guy, 40-something, the kind who smiles with his mouth but not his eyes. Carter, he says, barely glancing at her. You're on Section C tonight. The Richards party called. They're bringing business associates. I need Amanda on that table. Amanda immediately jumps in. Jasmine's better with high-end clients than I am. She should take it. But Gerald's already shaking his head, and here comes the line that every person of color has heard 1,000 times in 1,000 different ways. I need someone who fits the ambiance they're expecting. No offense, Jasmine. There it is. Coded language, polite racism. The kind that doesn't use slurs but cuts just as deep. Jasmine responds with that practiced calm she's perfected over 3 years. Over 28 years. Over a lifetime. None taken. But you can see it if you look close enough. The way her jaw tightens just slightly. The way her eyes dim for just a second. It stings. God, it stings. Every single time. Amanda leans in, whispering furiously, "That's such BS, Jazz." "It's fine," Jasmine says, forcing her smile back into place. Section C tips well enough. She has no idea that Section C is about to change her entire life. Welcome back to Mirror Stories. If you are new here, you've joined a community dedicated to truth, justice, and survival. Show some love by clicking the likes and subscribe button. Before we dive deeper into the story, drop a comment where you are watching from and what time it is for you right now. 7 p.m. The moment everything changed. The front doors of Le Sommet burst open like someone's making a movie entrance, and in walks Richard Wellington III. Yes, the third. Because apparently being entitled runs in the family for 3 generations. Mid-40s, expensive suit that probably costs more than Jasmine makes in 6 months, Rolex catching the light like it's screaming for attention. And he's loud. The kind of loud that says, I need everyone in this room to know I exist. He's got his 19-year-old son Marcus with him, plus 3 business associates who look like they'd rather be anywhere else. Richard's snapping his fingers at the hostess like she's a dog, and you can see her flinch. Gerald, the manager, comes rushing over like Richard's some kind of celebrity, practically tripping over himself to be accommodating, and Richard's voice carries across the entire restaurant. Just closed a $50 million deal in Shanghai. Tonight we celebrate American style. American style. Like that means something, like it's a badge of honor. They get seated at Amanda's table. Section A, the premium section. The section that Jasmine was told she doesn't fit the ambiance for. And Jasmine's just 2 tables over, serving a lovely elderly couple who actually treat her like a human being. But she can hear everything. Every word from Richard's table carries like he wants the whole world to listen. One of his associates asks, "So you speak Mandarin?" And Richard laughs, not a warm laugh, the kind of laugh that has cruelty baked into it. God, no. Had my translator, but I threw in ni hao and they ate it up. The Chinese are so easy to wow, impress, flash some white confidence. They fold every time. Jasmine's hand tightens on her serving tray. You can see her jaw clench, but she doesn't say anything. She's heard worse. She's heard so much worse. You learn to swallow it down when you need the job, when you need the money. When you've got an eviction notice on your nightstand and a dream that requires more savings than you've got. Marcus, Richard's son, looks uncomfortable. Really uncomfortable. He's barely making eye contact with anyone, like he's trying to shrink into his chair. Like he's embarrassed. And he should be. Amanda catches Jasmine's eye from across the room and gives her this look that says, I'm so sorry you have to hear this. Because that's the thing about being a person of color in these spaces. The racism isn't always directed at you. Sometimes you just have to stand there and listen to it. Absorb it. Pretend it doesn't cut you to pieces. But then things get worse. Amanda's juggling too many tables, the restaurant's packed, she's drowning, and Gerald, in his infinite wisdom, decides that one of Richard's business associates needs to be moved to a different table. Jasmine's section. Gerald marches over to Jasmine and his voice has that edge to it. That warning. Carter, take the gentleman at the end. Don't screw this up. Don't screw this up, like she's ever screwed anything up in 3 years. Like she's not the most reliable person on staff. But sure, Gerald. Thanks for the vote of confidence. Jasmine approaches the associate with perfect professionalism, smile in place, posture perfect. Good evening, sir. Can I start you with something to drink? But before the man can even answer, Richard's voice cuts across the restaurant like a knife. Hey, sweetheart. Over here. Sweetheart. Not miss. Not, excuse me. Sweetheart. Like she's 5 years old. Jasmine walks over to the main table, and Richard looks her up and down in a way that makes your skin crawl. That assessing look. That, let me determine your worth in 3 seconds look. You knew? He asks. Haven't seen you before. And here's the knife twist. Jasmine has served this man before, at least twice in the last 6 months. She remembers because he's the kind of customer you don't forget. The kind who doesn't tip well and treats you like furniture. But he doesn't remember her, because she's invisible to him. She's part of the scenery. I've worked here 3 years, sir. Jasmine says, voice steady. Richard turns to his friends and laughs. 3 years, guess I never noticed. The table erupts in laughter, like it's the funniest joke they've ever heard, like Jasmine's invisibility is comedy gold. Then Richard pivots, looking back at her with this condescending smile. We need someone who knows about wine. Can you get us? Someone more experienced? Someone more experienced. Translation, someone white, someone who looks like they belong, someone who isn't you. But Jasmine doesn't flinch, she's played this game before. I'm happy to help with wine selections. We have an excellent Bordeaux from... Bordeaux? Richard interrupts, and his eyebrows go up like she just claimed to speak Martian. You even know what that is? More laughter from the table. Marcus isn't laughing, though. He's looking down at his napkin like he wants to disappear. And this is where you see exactly who Jasmine Carter is. Because her voice doesn't shake. Her smile doesn't falter. She looks Richard dead in the eye and says, "It's a red wine from the Bordeaux region of France, primarily blends of Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot. Would you prefer something from the left bank or right bank?" The table goes quiet. Richard's smile falters for just a second, because he wasn't expecting that. He wasn't expecting her to actually know what she's talking about. He was expecting her to fumble, to prove him right. "Left bank," he finally says, recovering his composure. "The 09 Chateau Margaux, one of the most expensive wines in the restaurant, of course." "Excellent choice," Jasmine says smoothly. "I'll have that decanted for you." She turns to walk away, professional and composed. But Richard's voice follows her, loud enough for her to hear, loud enough for half the restaurant to hear. Probably read that off the menu. Jasmine had dealt with men like Richard before. Men who couldn't stand being wrong. Men who couldn't stand being shown up. Men who needed to diminish her to feel big. But she had no idea how far this particular man was willing to go. She returns a few minutes later with the wine. And she does it right. Not because she has to prove anything, but because she has pride in her work. She shows Richard the label, lets him verify it's the right bottle. She opens it with practiced ease, pours a small tasting portion, waits while he swirls it, sniffs it, tastes it like he's some kind of expert, even though she'd bet money he can't tell a $50 bottle from a $500 one. He nods dismissively. "It'll do. It'll do. A bottle that costs $800. It'll do." Jasmine begins pouring for everyone at the table, and that's when Richard decides he's not done with her yet. "So where are you really from?" It's a question she's heard 1,000 times, and she knows exactly what he means, but she answers honestly anyway. "Philadelphia, sir." "No," Richard says, leaning back in his chair like he's got all the time in the world. "I mean originally. Before that. Before that. Like Philadelphia couldn't possibly be her origin story. Like black people must come from somewhere else. Somewhere foreign. Somewhere other. Philadelphia," Jasmine repeats, still professional, still calm. "Born and raised." Richard makes this little sound in the back of his throat. "Huh, just figured. Never mind." The air at the table is thick with awkwardness. Marcus tries to help. "Dad, can we just order?" But Richard waves him off. "Marcus, relax, I'm making conversation." Then he turns back to Jasmine, and his eyes have this gleam in them, this spark of something that feels dangerous. "Here, you speak any other languages?" "You people usually have that, what do they call it, oral tradition thing going." "You people. Oral tradition thing." Like he's talking about some kind of anthropological specimen instead of a human being standing right in front of him. Jasmine's smile is so tight it could crack. "I'll give you a few minutes to look over the menu." She starts to walk away. Professionally, gracefully, because she will not give this man the satisfaction of seeing her upset. But Richard's not done. Wait, I'm serious. Do you?" Jasmine stops, turns back, and here's the decision point. She could lie, could say no, could just take their order and be done with it. But something in her refuses to shrink, refuses to be less than what she is just to make this man comfortable. "I speak a few languages, yes." Richard's interest is piqued now. He sits up straighter. "Really? Like what?" And Jasmine, with quiet dignity, lists them. French, Spanish, Italian, and Mandarin. You can see Richard's associates exchange glances, skeptical glances. Because how could she? How could this waitress possibly speak 4 foreign languages? It doesn't fit their narrative, doesn't match the box they've put her in. Richard laughs, actually laughs out loud. "Mandarin? You speak Mandarin Chinese?" "Yes, sir." The laughter gets louder. Richard looks around the table like he's sharing a private joke. "Prove, say something in Chinese." And here's where everything shifts, where the entire trajectory of the night changes, because Jasmine could walk away, could refuse, could tell Gerald that she's being harassed. But she doesn't. Instead, in absolutely flawless Mandarin, she says, "I would prefer to take your dinner order if you're ready." The table goes completely quiet, not just Richard's table, the tables around them too. Because that wasn't a phrase, that wasn't ni hao, or thank you, or something you'd learn from a tourist app. That was fluent, perfect, natural Mandarin with proper tones and everything. Richard's smile disappears. Just for a moment you see something flicker across his face. Surprise. Maybe embarrassment. But then his ego kicks back in. You could be saying anything, he says, waving his hand dismissively. How do I know that's real Chinese? But one of his associates, the one who's been quiet this whole time, speaks up. Richard, she just asked for our order. That was actual Mandarin. You can see Richard's face flush. His jaw tightens, because he just got shown up. In front of his business associates, in front of his son, in front of a restaurant full of witnesses. And men like Richard Wellington don't handle that well. Lucky guess, he says, voice getting louder. Probably learned a few phrases, like I did for Shanghai. Ni hao, qi xie, it's not that hard. Jasmine's standing there, professional mask still in place, but you can see something building behind her eyes. Sir, I assure you. But Richard's standing up now. The entire restaurant's attention is turning toward them. This is becoming a scene. The exact kind of scene that gets servers fired. You know what? Richard announces loud enough for everyone to hear. I'll make you a bet. A real bet. That's not necessary. Jasmine tries. $300,000. The restaurant goes completely silent. Conversations stop mid-sentence. Forks freeze halfway to mouths. $300,000. Who just throws around numbers like that? If you can serve me in fluent Mandarin Chinese, not phrases, real conversation, for the rest of this meal, answer my questions, take my order, everything, I'll give you $300,000. Cash. Tomorrow. Jasmine's face doesn't change, but you know her heart is pounding. $300,000. That's the cultural center. That's the dream. That's everything she's been working toward for years. But it's also a trap. She can see it, everyone can see it. Sir, I don't think... What's wrong? Richard cuts her off, that smirk back on his face. Not confident? He turns to address the entire restaurant now, playing to his audience. See, she's full of it. These people always are. These people. There it is. Mask completely off. Marcus is mortified. Dad, this is embarrassing. But Richard ignores his son entirely. His focus is locked on Jasmine. Unless you're scared? Can't back up your claims? Jasmine's eyes find Chen Li across the restaurant. He's been watching this whole thing unfold. Their eyes meet. And Chen Li gives the smallest nod. A nod that says, I've got you. Whatever happens, I've got you. When Jasmine speaks, her voice is quiet, but it carries. What do I get when, not if, when I prove you wrong? Richard grins. He thinks he's won. I told you, 300,000. And what do you get if I somehow fail? The satisfaction of being right, Richard says. Then he adds, almost as an afterthought, and you get fired. Deal? Gerald, the manager, starts sputtering. Now wait a minute. But Richard waves him off like he's swatting a fly. Gerald actually backs down. Because Richard's the customer. Richard has money. Richard matters in a way that Jasmine apparently doesn't. Gerald leans in close to Jasmine, whispers urgently, Don't do this. He'll complain either way. You'll lose your job anyway. But Jasmine's not looking at Gerald. She's looking directly at Richard Wellington III. This man who came in here bragging about exploiting Chinese business partners. This man who spent the last hour treating her like she's beneath him. This man who couldn't even remember her face after she'd served him twice before. And she thinks about that eviction notice. About the cultural center. About every kid who's ever been told they're not good enough. About every person who's been invisible. About every single time someone looked at her and decided who she was before she ever opened her mouth. Deal, she says. Richard extends his hand. They shake. His grip is aggressive, trying to intimidate. Hers is firm, steady, unafraid. $300,000. Her entire dream on the line. Her job at risk. Her dignity being wagered like a poker chip in a game she never asked to play. But Jasmine Carter was about to give a performance this man would never forget. Here's my question for you. If you were Jasmine in that moment, would you take the bet? Would you risk everything for a shot at your dream? Drop your answer in the comments, because the next 10 minutes are going to be absolutely wild. The bet is made. $300,000 on the line. And now, everyone in that restaurant is about to witness something they'll never forget. Jasmine takes a breath, straightens her shoulders, and when she speaks again, it's entirely in Mandarin. Not a word of English. Not a single concession to make Richard comfortable. Pure, flawless, sophisticated Mandarin Chinese. Would you like to hear tonight's specials? Mr. Wellington. The tones are perfect. The pronunciation is crisp. It flows like water, like she was born speaking this language. Richard's sitting there trying to look confident, and he responds in the most broken, butchered Mandarin you've ever heard. Yes, tell me. Specials. It's painful. Like watching someone try to play a piano concerto when they've only learned chopsticks. His tones are all wrong. His pronunciation is embarrassing. But he's grinning like he's nailing it. Jasmine doesn't miss a beat. She launches into a complex, detailed description of the evening's specials. And I'm not talking about we have fish or the soup is good. No. She's describing the Chilean sea bass with a miso glaze, explaining how the miso is aged for 18 months, how it's paired with baby bok choy that's been wok-tossed with garlic and ginger, how the dish is finished with a yuzu butter sauce that balances the umami of the miso with bright citrus notes, all in rapid, fluent Mandarin. She's discussing ingredients, preparation methods, wine pairings. The technical culinary vocabulary alone would trip up most native speakers. And she's doing it while maintaining perfect service posture, making eye contact, being professional. Richard's face is starting to show cracks. His smile is still there, but his eyes are confused. He's nodding along like he understands, but you can see him struggling. His associates are leaning in, fascinated. One of them clearly understands some Mandarin, and his eyebrows keep going up, impressed. Then Jasmine asks, still in perfect Mandarin, would you prefer the duck prepared Sichuan style with mala spices or the Cantonese preparation with plum sauce? Richard's smile falters. He shifts in his seat, and then in English he says, what's the difference? English. He broke first. He couldn't keep up, so he defaulted back to English, and Jasmine, with the slightest smile playing at the corner of her lips, responds in Mandarin. I'm sorry, Mr. Wellington. The bet specifies I speak only in Mandarin. Perhaps you'd like me to repeat the options? Richard's face flushes red, like someone just slapped him across the face in front of everyone he knows. One of his associates leans in, whispering, she's asking about the duck preparation, Sichuan or Cantonese style. And Richard snaps back, I know what she's saying. But he doesn't. Everyone at that table knows he doesn't. Everyone in earshot knows he doesn't. The emperor has no clothes, and the whole kingdom is watching. Jasmine continues taking orders. In flawless Mandarin, she explains each menu item with the kind of detail that shows she doesn't just speak the language, she understands food culture. She talks about how the Peking duck is prepared over fruit wood for that authentic flavor. She discusses the difference between Sichuan peppercorns and black pepper. She makes recommendations based on their wine selection, explaining which dishes will complement the Bordeaux they're drinking. And the whole time, Richard's associates are watching with growing amusement. Because this isn't just a waitress speaking another language. This is someone who's so fluent, so natural, that she's making their boss look like a complete fool. Marcus, Richard's 19-year-old son who's been uncomfortable this entire evening, is almost smiling now. For the first time tonight, there's something like pride in his eyes. Not for his father, but for this woman his father tried to humiliate. But Richard Wellington didn't become a millionaire by admitting defeat easily, so he tries a different tactic. He tries to catch her in a mistake, trip her up, expose her as a fraud. In his broken, painful Mandarin he asks, tell me about your life. Where learn Chinese. He can barely string the sentence together. The grammar is wrong. The tones are off. But Jasmine understands him, and she responds with a story that hits like a freight train. In absolutely flawless Mandarin, she says, I taught myself, starting at age 12. I was in foster care, and the library was my sanctuary. I discovered language tapes, Mandarin, French, Spanish. Languages became my escape. When you understand how people communicate, you understand their hearts. It's poetic, it's vulnerable, it's real. And she's saying it in Mandarin so beautiful that even if you don't speak the language, you can hear the emotion in it, the rhythm, the soul. Richard's clearly lost. He catches maybe one word in 5. He's looking around, panicking slightly. Foster care? You're making this up? But his associate cuts him off, the one who understands Mandarin. Richard, she just told you her whole backstory. She learned from library tapes starting at 12. It was beautiful, actually. Beautiful, that's the word he uses. This business associate who came in here expecting a regular dinner is genuinely moved by Jasmine's story. Even though it was told in a language most of the table doesn't speak, you can see Richard's confidence cracking like ice under pressure. He's sweating now. Loosening his tie, his $3,000 suit suddenly looks uncomfortable, so he gets aggressive. Because that's what men like him do when they're losing. Fine, talk about something complex. Chinese business culture, explain that. He thinks he's being clever. He just closed a $50 million deal in Shanghai, remember? He thinks he knows Chinese business culture. He thinks this is where he'll catch her, where she'll finally reveal that she's just memorized phrases and doesn't actually understand the deeper concepts. Jasmine looks him dead in the eye, and in sophisticated, nuanced Mandarin that would make a Harvard professor jealous, she says, Chinese business culture emphasizes guanxi, relationships built on trust and reciprocity. It's not about flashy displays or aggressive tactics. It's about patience, respect, and understanding that you're building something that lasts beyond a single transaction. It's about seeing the person across from you as a human being, not a conquest. Let that sink in. She just explained Chinese business philosophy in a way that directly criticizes Richard's entire approach. She called him out, in Mandarin, in front of his associates, using the very language he claimed to have mastered enough to close a $50 million deal. The associate who understands Mandarin is nodding, clearly impressed. His face shows respect, real respect. And then he turns to Richard and delivers the killing blow. Richard, she just schooled you on why your Shanghai deal probably wasn't as great as you think it was. Richard's face goes from red to purple. He's gripping the edge of the table so hard his knuckles are white, because he came in here bragging about that deal, about how easy the Chinese were to manipulate, about his white confidence. And this waitress, this black woman he didn't even remember meeting before, just explained exactly why he got played. Jasmine continues her service. She brings their appetizers, their entrees, everything in perfect Mandarin, describing dishes, checking if they need anything, being the consummate professional. And with every flawless sentence, Richard looks smaller, more defeated, more humiliated. He's desperately to find a way out, a loophole, something. And finally he can't take it anymore. In English, loud and desperate, he says, "This is ridiculous, there's no way." That's when Chen Li appears at the table. The restaurant owner, moving with quiet authority. He's been watching this entire performance from across the room, and now he's stepping in. "Mr. Wellington, is there a problem?" Richard latches on to him like a drowning man grabbing a life raft. She's cheating somehow. And then Chen Li does something that makes the entire restaurant hold its breath. He switches to Mandarin. Speaking directly to Jasmine, he asks, "How's the service going, Jasmine?" Jasmine responds in Mandarin, respectful and composed. "Everything is going well, Mr. Chen. The gentleman is enjoying the meal." Then Chen Li turns to Richard, still speaking Mandarin. "And you, sir? Is her Mandarin satisfactory?" Richard's face is blank, completely blank. He doesn't understand a word. What are you saying?" Chen Li switches back to English, and his voice is cold, ice cold. "I asked if her service is satisfactory. Her Mandarin is flawless, by the way. Better than many native speakers. Better than many native speakers. Coming from a man who was born in Shanghai, who grew up speaking Mandarin, who came to this country and built an empire while preserving his language and culture. That's not a compliment. That's a statement of fact delivered with the weight of absolute authority." Richard's scrambling now. Look, this is some kind of setup. And that's when Jasmine decides to twist the knife. Calmly, almost sweetly, she switches to Italian. "Perfect. Flowing Italian. Se preferisse possiamo continuare in italiano. If you prefer, we can continue in Italian." Richard's eyes go wide. "What is that?" Jasmine switches again, this time to French. "Peut-être le français serait mieux." Perhaps French would be better. Another switch. "Spanish o español? Lo que prefiera, señor." Or Spanish? Whatever you prefer, sir. 5 languages. She just cycled through 5 different languages in 30 seconds. Each one perfect, each one natural, like she was born speaking all of them. And the restaurant erupts. Whispers everywhere. Phones coming out, people recording. This is the kind of moment that goes viral. The kind of moment that restores your faith in justice. Marcus, who's been sitting there watching his father get destroyed, finally speaks up. His voice is quiet but firm. Dad, you lost. Just pay her and apologize. There's no anger in his voice, just disappointment. Deep disappointment, like he's been waiting his whole life for his father to be better, and tonight confirmed his worst fears. But Richard Wellington isn't ready to surrender. He stands up, chair scraping loudly against the floor. His voice is loud, panicked, desperate. This is a scam. She probably has an earpiece. An earpiece. That's what he's going with. Because in his mind, there's no way a black waitress could be this educated, this skilled, this brilliant. It must be a trick. It must be a con. Because acknowledging the truth means acknowledging that he was wrong. That his entire worldview is built on lies. Chen Li's voice cuts through Richard's panic like a blade. Mr. Wellington, I've known Jasmine for 3 years. I've watched her study during breaks. She helps my daughter with English, and my daughter helps her with Mandarin. She teaches Italian to our line cook's son. She is the real thing. He pauses, and his next words land with devastating precision. You, sir, are not. You, sir, are not. 6 words that say everything. You're not real. You're not authentic. You're not honest. You're a fraud in an expensive suit, and everyone in this room can see it now. The restaurant is silent except for the sound of phones recording, the sound of witnesses capturing this moment, the sound of Richard Wellington's reputation crumbling in real time. But Richard Wellington wasn't done. Men like him never go down without trying to burn everything around them first. And what he was about to do next would force Jasmine to reveal a secret that would change everything. Richard Wellington is cornered, exposed, humiliated in front of a restaurant full of witnesses with their phones out, and now he's about to show everyone exactly who he really is. His face is red, veins popping in his neck, and he loses it. Completely loses it. I'm not paying some. He catches himself. Stops mid-sentence. Because he knows if he finishes that sentence, if he says what he's really thinking, there's no coming back from it. Some waitress, $300,000. Some waitress. That's what he went with. But everyone heard the pause. Everyone knows what word almost came out of his mouth. And Jasmine, who has been professional and composed this entire evening, who has absorbed every insult with grace, finally lets her armor show. Her voice is calm, but it's deadly calm. The kind of calm that comes right before a storm. Somewhat, Mr. Wellington, finish your sentence. Silence. Complete and total silence. You could hear a pin drop in that restaurant. Every person is frozen, waiting to see if Richard will actually say it. If he'll reveal what everyone already knows is in his heart. You know what I mean, Richard stammers. I do, Jasmine says, and her voice is stronger now. Clearer. Everyone here does. You assume that because I'm black, I couldn't possibly be educated, couldn't possibly speak 5 languages, couldn't possibly be more than what you saw when you looked at me for half a second. Richard tries to interrupt. That's not. But Jasmine isn't done. She spent 3 years swallowing this, 3 years being invisible, 3 years being passed over and talked down to and dismissed. And tonight, she's not swallowing it anymore. You've been here a dozen times. I've served you before, twice actually. You never noticed because people like me are invisible to people like you, until we become useful, or until we threaten your ego. Every word lands like a hammer. Because it's not just about Richard anymore. It's about every person who's ever been judged by their appearance. Every person who's been underestimated. Every person who's had to work twice as hard just to be seen as half as good. And then Marcus stands up, Richard's 19-year-old son, the kid who's been uncomfortable all night, the kid who's been watching his father spiral. He stands up and his voice is shaking, but he says it anyway. She's right, Dad. This is exactly what Mom left you over. Richard freezes, like someone just hit him with a taser. Don't you dare. But Marcus keeps going, and you can hear years of pain in his voice. She said you couldn't see people, just props in your life. I didn't want to believe it, but he gestures at the scene around them. The phones recording, the staff watching, Jasmine standing there with quiet dignity. Here we are. Mom left you over, those words hang in the air. Because this isn't just about tonight. This is a pattern. This is who Richard Wellington has always been. And it cost him his marriage. It's costing him his son's respect. And now it's costing him his reputation. But Jasmine's not done, because she's been holding on to something. A secret. something that's about to make this entire situation even more explosive. You want to know the irony, Mr. Wellington? Her voice is almost conversational now, like she's discussing the weather. That $50 million deal you closed in Shanghai? Richard's eyes narrow. What about it? I translated the initial documents. The words drop like a bomb. Richard's face goes slack. Jasmine continues, and every sentence is a dagger. Chen Li's wife runs a translation service, one of the best in the city. I freelance for her. Have been for 2 years. I saw your contract, read every line. And I have to tell you, Mr. Wellington, the Chinese company included clauses you didn't catch because your translator was lazy. Or maybe just incompetent. You're paying 30% more in tariffs than you should be. Richard's face drains of color. All that red anger just gone. Replaced by pale shock. Section 14, subsection C, Jasmine says, like she's reciting something she memorized. It's written in a way that sounds beneficial in English, but means something very different in Mandarin. It's a common tactic when they know the other party doesn't truly understand the language. If you had someone who actually understood the language, culturally, not just words, they would have caught it. One of Richard's associates is already pulling out his phone, fingers flying across the screen. Richard, we need to check the contracts, now. But Richard's not looking at his associate. He's staring at Jasmine with something between horror and rage. His voice comes out venomous, desperate. If this is true, why didn't you say something? And this is the question Jasmine's been waiting for. This is the moment where she gets to show him exactly how his prejudice cost him. Because it wasn't my job, she says simply. I was hired to translate documents, which I did. Accurately and completely. What your lawyer does with those translations isn't my responsibility. She pauses, and her next words cut to the bone. And because even if I had called you, told you I noticed a problem, would you have listened to some waitress? Richard has no answer, because they both know the truth. He wouldn't have. He would have dismissed her. Probably would have complained to Chen Li about an uppity employee overstepping. He would have ignored the one person who could have saved him millions of dollars, because she didn't look like someone who could possibly know better than him. The restaurant is absolutely riveted. This isn't just drama anymore. This is a masterclass in consequences. In karma. In what happens when you underestimate people. Chen Li steps forward, and his voice carries authority. Real authority. The kind you can't buy or fake. Mr. Wellington, you have a choice. Honor your bet, apologize to Jasmine and my entire staff for your behavior, and leave quietly. Or I call my friend Margaret Chen. Richard looks confused. Who? Chen Li's smile is cold. The CEO of Chen Industries. The company you just made a deal with, my cousin. I'm sure she'd be interested to hear how you speak about Chinese people, and women, and anyone you consider beneath you. My cousin. The CEO of the company Richard just signed a $50 million deal with. Richard's face drains of whatever color was left. His mouth opens and closes like a fish out of water. Because he just realized that his entire Shanghai deal, his big accomplishment, the thing he walked in here bragging about, is hanging by a thread. And that thread is held by the family of the man whose restaurant he just disrespected, whose employee he just tried to humiliate. The irony is almost poetic. Jasmine's voice cuts through Richard's panic. You can Venmo me, or write a check. I'm not particular. Her calm is devastating. She's not gloating, not celebrating, just stating facts. You owe me $300,000. Pay up. Richard's voice comes out small, beaten. I don't have that kind of cash on me. Then you have until tomorrow at 5 p.m., Jasmine says. Chen Li has my contact information. Richard's grasping for any out. And if I don't pay? Chen Li's smile gets wider. Then every restaurant, country club, and business associate in this city will know exactly who Richard Wellington III really is. My cousin Margaret will make sure of it. And trust me, Mr. Wellington, Margaret has a very long memory and a very wide network. Richard's trapped. Completely trapped. He can pay and admit defeat, or he can refuse and watch his business reputation crumble. Watch that $50 million deal disappear. Watch every door in the city close in his face. But Jasmine isn't done. Because this isn't just about money. This was never just about money. Her voice softens, becomes almost gentle. But the words hit harder than any anger could. Or you could pay what you owe, learn that people are more than what they look like, and maybe, just maybe, become someone your son doesn't have to be ashamed of. She looks at Marcus, really looks at him, and Marcus is staring at his father with tears in his eyes. He wants to be proud of you, Jasmine says. Give him a reason to be. And that does it. That breaks something in Richard Wellington. Because money he can handle losing, pride he can recover. But his son? His 19-year-old son who's watched him tonight and seen exactly who his father really is? That's the one thing he might have lost forever. Richard sits down, slowly, like all the fight has gone out of him. He pulls out his phone with shaking hands. What's your Venmo? The words come out defeated. Quiet. The voice of a man who just lost everything that mattered while still having everything he thought mattered. Jasmine gives him her information. Professional to the end. And Richard types, his fingers fumbling on the screen. $300,000. The bet he made so confidently just an hour ago. The trap he set that he walked right into. The notification comes through. Payment received. And the restaurant erupts. Applause. Cheering. People standing up. Phones still recording. Capturing this moment. This perfect moment of justice served cold in a 5-star restaurant. Amanda's crying. The kitchen staff are cheering. Chen-Li is nodding with quiet satisfaction. And Jasmine? Jasmine is just standing there, professional smile back in place, like she didn't just change her entire life in the span of an evening. If this story is giving you chills, hit that subscribe button right now because you need to see how Jasmine's life transforms after this night. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. And here's my question. If you had been in that restaurant, recording on your phone, what would you have said to Jasmine after Richard left? Drop your answer in the comments because I want to know how this moment hit you. Richard Wellington stands up. Doesn't look at anyone. Can't look at anyone. Marcus follows him, and as they walk toward the exit, Marcus stops, turns back, looks at Jasmine. Thank you, he mouths. Just those 2 words. Thank you. Thank you for showing me the truth. Thank you for being brave. Thank you for being everything my father isn't. And then they're gone. The restaurant door closes behind them. And Jasmine's left standing there, her phone showing a notification that will change everything. $300,000 received. 3 years of double shifts. 3 years of being invisible. 3 years of swallowing insults and biting her tongue and being professional while people treated her like she didn't matter. And in one night, everything changed. But this isn't where the story ends. Because money is one thing. What Jasmine does with that money? That's where the real magic happens. The next afternoon, Jasmine's sitting in Chen-Li's office and she keeps refreshing her phone. Over and over. Like if she checks enough times, the number will change. But it doesn't. $300,000. Actually there. Actually real. Chen-Li is watching her with that quiet smile of his. Congratulations. You earned every penny. Jasmine looks up, and her eyes are still dazed, like she's walking through a dream. I can't believe this is real. It's real, Chen-Li says, leaning back in his chair. So what will you do now? And for the first time since last night, Jasmine's face lights up with pure, unfiltered joy. The Cultural Center. For kids like me, where they can learn languages, arts, anything they want, where they're seen. It's not even a question. This is what she's been working toward. What every double shift, every sore foot, every swallowed insult has been for. And now it's actually possible. Chen-Li nods slowly. You're going to quit? The joy drains from Jasmine's face. Panic replaces it. No, I still need, but Chen-Li's already smiling. Relax, I'm promoting you. Assistant manager. You'll train staff, work reasonable hours, and have time for your center. Deal? Jasmine's eyes fill with tears. Real tears. The kind that come when someone sees you, really sees you. Mr. Chen. He holds up a hand, stopping her. And his voice gets softer. More personal. I came to this country with nothing. People saw my accent, my face, and assumed I'd stay in the back washing dishes forever. Someone gave me a chance. Now I give you one. See, that's the thing about people who've been invisible, who've been underestimated. They recognize each other. They lift each other up, because they know what it costs to be overlooked. And they know what it means when someone finally sees you. 6 months later. The Carter Cultural Center. That's what the sign says. Big, bright letters that you can see from down the street. and there's a ribbon stretched across the entrance, and Jasmine standing there with oversized scissors, surrounded by kids. Kids of every color, every background, every story. Kids who look like her, kids who don't, kids who just need someone to tell them they matter. She cuts the ribbon, and the crowd erupts, cheering, applause, cameras flashing, and Jasmine's crying, but she's laughing too. Because this is it. This is the dream, not in some distant future, not someday. Now. Inside, the center is alive. There's a classroom where a group of kids are learning Spanish, their voices rising and falling with the rhythm of conjugations. Another room where teenagers are practicing French pronunciation. A corner where little ones are drawing characters in Mandarin, their tongues sticking out in concentration. Chenli's there, of course. Standing in the back, arms crossed, that same satisfied smile on his face. Amanda's there too, volunteering as an English tutor, helping a young girl from Honduras with her homework. The kitchen staff from May are there. The busboy Jasmine helped with Italian homework is there, now teaching a beginner's class. And then the door opens, and someone walks in who doesn't quite fit. Someone who looks nervous, uncomfortable, sheepish. Marcus Wellington. He spots Jasmine across the room and he hesitates, like he's not sure if he's allowed to be here, like he's carrying his father's sins on his shoulders. "Hey," he says quietly, "is it okay that I'm here?" Jasmine walks over, and her face is kind, open. Everyone's welcome, even Wellington's. Marcus lets out a breath he's been holding. "My dad, he's in therapy, working on things. He wanted me to give you this." He hands her an envelope, handwritten, not typed, not formal, personal. Jasmine opens it, and we catch glimpses of the words. "I was wrong, years of assumptions. Thank you for the mirror. My son respects you, learning to be better." It's not a perfect apology. It doesn't erase what happened, but it's something. It's a start. It's a man who hit rock bottom, realizing that maybe, just maybe, he could become someone different. "Tell him thank you," Jasmine says, folding the letter carefully, "and that change is always possible." Marcus nods, and then he shifts his weight, nervous again. He also asked if maybe I could volunteer here. "I'm studying education, and I want to learn Mandarin." Jasmine smiles, really smiles. We start lessons Tuesday at 6. Later that evening, after everyone's gone home, Jasmine's alone in the center. The lights are dimmed, the classrooms are empty, but the walls are covered in flags from every country you can imagine. Children's artwork showing hands of different colors holding each other. Drawings of the world with hearts connecting every continent. She walks slowly through the space, trailing her fingers along the walls, and her voice comes soft, reflective. "People ask me if I forgave Richard Wellington. Here's the truth. Forgiveness isn't about them. It's about you. I refuse to carry anyone's hate, but I also refuse to be invisible." She stops at a bulletin board covered in photos. Kids laughing, learning, growing, being seen. That night changed my life. But not because of the money. It changed because I refused to shrink. I refused to be less than what I knew I was. She moves to the door, turning off lights as she goes. The last thing visible is the center's sign, the Carter Center, where every voice matters. We all speak different languages, Mandarin, Spanish, English, whatever. But there's one language everyone understands, respect. When you choose to see people, really see them, you realize we're all fluent in humanity. We just have to be willing to listen. Jasmine locks the door, walks to her car. Not the beat-up sedan she had 6 months ago. Something newer, more reliable, but still modest. Because flashy was never her style. Impact was. She drives away, and the center's lights stay on. A beacon. A promise. A place where every kid who walks through those doors knows they're seen. They're valued. They matter. Today, Jasmine's Cultural Center serves over 500 children annually. Every single staff member is multilingual. They teach 15 different languages. And yes, Richard Wellington paid the full $300,000. Every penny. Your voice matters. Your story matters. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. If this story inspired you, if it made you believe in justice and second chances and the power of refusing to be invisible, show some love by clicking the likes and subscribe button. Share the story. Because there are more stories like this, more moments where the underdog wins, more proof that character always beats prejudice in the end. And here's my question for you. What language would you want to learn? Drop it in the comments. And if you've ever been underestimated like Jasmine, share that too. Because your story matters. Every single one of you matters. Jasmine Carter started as invisible, a waitress people looked through instead of at, a woman carrying dreams that seemed impossible. And in one night, she proved that the most dangerous person in the room is the one you underestimate. She spoke 5 languages that night. But the real language she spoke, the language of dignity, of self-worth, of refusing to accept someone else's limitations. And that's a language we could all stand to learn.